While looking around the internet, I stumbled upon a medical source for the 6th Rangers that talks about this Dr. Jimmy. So I thought I might as well just dive into this. So here we go. When most people hear the words Cabanatuan raid, they think of the Rangers sneaking through the darkness, Alamo scouts observing Japanese positions, and hundreds of Allied prisoners finally tasting freedom after years of captivity. The operation has been subject of books, documentaries, and even a film, The Great Raid. Yet one part of the story is often overlooked: the men responsible for keeping those Rangers alive. To understand their story, we first need to understand the unique unit they served with. The 6th Ranger Battalion was unlike any other Ranger unit of the Second World War. While Rangers in Europe often fought alongside larger formations, the 6th Rangers frequently operated independently in the Pacific. Their roots stretched back to the 89th Field Artillery Battalion, a mule-drawn artillery unit that had found itself increasingly obsolete in the Pacific theater. General Walter Krueger, commander of the 6th Army, saw the need for a small, highly trained unit capable of conducting reconnaissance raids and unconventional operations. The result was the creation of the 6th Ranger Battalion, a force that would go on to participate in the invasion of the Philippines and conduct one of the most famous rescue missions of the war. Unlike conventional infantry battalions, the Rangers could not rely on normal medical support structure available to larger units. Mostly infantry battalions had access to collecting stations, clearing stations, and well-established chain evacuation. The Rangers often operated too far forward, too independently, or too secretly from that system to work. As a result, Ranger medical support had to be adapted specifically for missions where they could forward the assault troops, and treatment plans had to be tailored for operations that might leave Rangers isolated behind enemy lines. Captain James Fisher, a Harvard-trained surgeon who became one of the most respected men in the battalion. Before the war, Fisher worked at a Boston City hospital and expected that his surgical experience would earn him a position in a rear area hospital. Instead, he found himself assigned to the Pacific with the 98th Field Artillery Battalion. Transformed into the 6th Ranger Battalion, Fisher volunteered to remain with the unit. Unlike many surgeons who stayed well behind the front lines, Fisher insisted upon completing the same training as the Rangers themselves. He joined foot marches, training patrols, and field exercises, earning the respect of the men who come to know him as simply as Dr. Jimmy. While stationed in New Guinea and later in the Philippines, he treated local civilians in addition to military duties. During an operations on Luzon, he even helped deliver a Filipino woman's first child. The grateful mother later asked Fisher to become the child's godfather. Stories like these reveal sides of military medicine often absent from combat histories. Fisher was not only concerned with treating wounded soldiers, he genuinely cared about the people living in the areas where the Rangers operated. The Pacific Theater presented medical challenges very different from those encountered in Europe. Disease was often as dangerous as enemy fire. Rangers operated in tropical climates where malaria, jungle rot, parasites, and contaminated water threatened combat effectiveness. The broader 6th Army issued atropine to suppress malaria, distributed water purification tablets, and implemented disease prevention measures whenever possible. Yet conditions in the field remained harsh. One account even described the Ranger officer whose severe jungle rot nearly prevented him from participating in the I'll put that word on screen mission. Medical personnel fought a constant battle not only against combat wounds, but also the raging environment themselves. I also made a video talking about atropine in a previous video. I'm pretty sure it was my Medics in the Pacific. Go check that out. The Rangers also faced unique challenges. When evacuating casualties, unlike larger formations, they processed no dedicated ambulances within the battalion. Wounded men were generally carried by fellow Rangers or litter bearers until they could reach an aid station. From there, evacuation depended on whatever resources were available nearby. During amphibious landings, vehicles could not be brought ashore immediately, forcing medical personnel to improvise until additional support arrived. This reality meant that Ranger medics had to be capable of stabilizing casualties for extended periods under difficult conditions. All these experiences would accumulate in January of 1945, during the planning for the raid on the prisoner of war camp at Again, that'll be on screen. Intelligence reports indicated that hundreds of Americans, British, and Australian prisoners remained inside the camp. Many had survived the infamous Bataan Death March and years of brutal captivity. There were growing fears that Japanese forces might execute the prisoners as Allied forces advanced across the Philippines. A rescue mission was approved. Medical planning for the operation was just as important as the tactical planning. Dr. Fisher understood that hundreds of liberated prisoners would be weak, malnourished, and medically fragile. He coordinated with the Filipino physician Dr. Carlos Luang to establish a forward surgical position in the village of Palatro. This facility would provide treatment for wounded rangers, injured prisoners, and anyone requiring immediate medical attention after the raid. Fisher also helped organize evacuation procedures and treatment plans that accounted for the extraordinary number of expected patients. As preparations continued, Fisher made a decision that perfectly reflected his character. Rather than remaining behind at the surgical station, he argued that he should accompany the assault force. He wanted to be as close to the wounded as possible. His experience as a surgeon convinced him that immediate treatment could save lives, and he was unwilling to wait miles away while the Rangers fought. His permission was granted, and Fisher moved with the assault force. The raid itself unfolded with a remarkable speed. Ranger assault teams overwhelmed Japanese defenses and secured the camp. Hundreds of prisoners were liberated. Yet in the final moments of the battle, tragedy struck. A Japanese mortar crew managed to fire several rounds toward the camp. Fragments struck Dr. Fisher in the abdomen. The man who had organized the medical plan for the operation suddenly became one of its most critically wounded casualties. Fisher was immediately evacuated to the various surgical station where he helped establish. There, Dr. Carlos Luang and his wife and two recently liberated American surgeons worked desperately to save him. Fisher had suffered devastating injuries. Shrapnel had torn through his liver and intestines, causing severe internal bleeding. Despite limited equipment and the difficult circumstances, the surgeons operated for hours in an attempt to stabilize him. Recognizing the severity of his condition, arrangements were made for an emergency evacuation by aircraft. Rangers, Alamo Scouts, and the Filipino civilians worked together to create a primitive landing strip. Fisher was carried on a makeshift stretcher fashioned from large store and transported to the nearby village where the aircraft was expected to land. One of the most remarkable efforts involved a direct vein-to-vein blood transfusion from one of the Alamo Scout donors, sharing Fisher's blood type. Every possible measure was attempted. While Fisher fought for his life, another extraordinary medical effort unfolded around him. The liberated prisoners were too weak to complete the journey back to the American lines on foot. Filipino civilians responded by providing dozens of Cabrino carts. Rangers carried prisoners on their backs until the carts could be reached. As the column passed through villages, more carts were donated. Eventually, more than 100 carts became part of the evacuation effort, carrying foreign prisoners, wounded Rangers, foods, and supplies towards safety. By January 31st, the Ranger column finally linked up with ambulances from the 92nd Evacuation Hospital. The rescued prisoners could now receive the full medical care they desperately needed. The operation had succeeded beyond expectations. More than 500 prisoners had been freed, and the medical plan developed by Fisher and his team had played a crucial role in that success. Sadly, Dr. Jimmy could not survive. Despite the efforts of multiple surgeons, blood transfusions, and preparations for air evacuation, his wounds proved too severe. His death deeply affected the Rangers, who had come to respect him not only as their surgeon, but one of their own. He had trained alongside them, marched alongside them, and ultimately shared the risks of one of the battalion's most dangerous missions. When the war ended in 1945, the 6th Ranger Battalion was disbanded, yet medical story remains unique in military history. Operating far from conventional support, Ranger medics adapted to missions that required flexibility, innovation, and courage. They treated casualties in jungles, improvised evacuation systems using local resources, and battled disease as fiercely as they battled the enemy. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more, click the videos on the left and the right. If you have any video suggestions or any questions, comment below. Have a great day.